Hello, darklings. Welcome to HorrorAddicts.net. If you're drawn to the dark and dismal, delight in the macabre, or have sometimes been called strange, you'll fit right in here. HorrorAddicts.net is a production for horror addicts by horror addicts. If you love horror like we do, you've found your family. Some themes, situations, and topics on this show may not be safe for minors. You can listen to past episodes, read horror news, or find out more about us at HorrorAddicts.net. Our theme music is I Felt a Funeral by Valentine Wolf. Sit back, listener, relax, and get your dose of horror. It will make all the norm nonsense fade, if just for a little while.
This is Eugene Bacon, and you're listening to HorrorAddicts.net, a podcast for horror addicts by horror addicts. Stay spooky!
You can listen to HorrorAddicts.net through our site, on iTunes, or by downloading the Belfry Network app at the Play Store. Hello, my addicts. It's 141 days till Halloween. I am Emery and Rich, author of the Nights of Vampire series, and your guide through this horrifying trip. This season, we're going to be exploring cultural horror from all over the world. This episode, we're going to be talking about African horror. We'll be reviewing the movie His House. Our author guest is Eugene Bacon, and our featured music this week is Vexillary. Let's kick off the show with some music to get us in the mood.
Greetings, horror addicts, and welcome to this week's Meryl's Musical Musings. I plan to bring you some groovy reviews and righteous recommendations throughout the year, so I want to just keep your tunage vibing, or something like that. Despite the insanity that was 2020, many artists were able to come up with inspired material, and I'll share some great picks with you over the coming months. Vexillary is an instrumental project by New York-based Reza Serafi that was influenced by the artist's love of blending components to create something new. A chemist in his other life, he likes to take seemingly inharmonious sounds and make them fit together. Tracks like Maritime Panic offer additional sonic adventures with each new listen. Annihilation is another track that has a manic feel, leaves a listener grasping at the elements and trying to find something to hold on to. There's a feeling of doom, especially in the opening notes of Forged Skies, but this offering of electronica is never gloomy. And by the time you reach The Geneticist, the mad scientist vibe of the Sir Violence is complete. Vexillary is music for those who need an intense infusion with a side of chaos to make their oral journey complete. Give it a listen, let us know what you think. Want to share your favorite music from 2020 or early 2021? Send me a comment or an email, rlmerrillauthor@gmail.com. And stay tuned for more Merrill's musical musings.
Great music, thank you, Ro, and you can read more about them in Ro's full review at horroraddicts.net. Oh, my addicts, what has been happening with you? I hope you're well. I hope you're getting used to this new normal that we have. As for me, what's been happening? A lot of crap, really, actually. First, I spilled a gallon of milk at the grocery store. I've never done that before in my life. And it totally split right at the handle, so I couldn't even pick it up. So it's like this massive, like, picture the Shining blood volcano situation, only with white milk. It was like that, gushing all over my shoes, making a river in the middle of the grocery aisle. I mean, people had to come and spread kitty litter and mop it up, and everyone had to wait. It was horrible, very embarrassing. Let the goth girls mess it up stuff. Totally backed up all their stereotypes. So yeah, we're going to have to work harder on that. Then I had to give my autistic son his first vaccination shot. That was an adventure. And then the hospital stuck a camera down my throat all the way to my stomach and I guess intestines. I don't know. I was asleep. I was out of it. But it was gross. And I woke up all drugged up and I don't know. It felt like there was dust in there afterwards. I mean, I think they cleaned those tubes, right? I hope so. I don't think our insides are supposed to be poked and prodded like that. Like, you know, you watch these horror movies and people are tortured and everything, but we never see that aftermath. What if they actually did cut off your pinky toe? Like, what is the aftermath of that? It's horrible, and we never see that, which is probably a good thing, but we never think about that when we're watching horror movies, do we? Most of the time, people don't survive, so I guess they don't have to suffer for very long. What else happened? My son turned 16. Yeah, 16 years since I almost died. And yeah, I'm really thankful for these years and everything, but it doesn't make turning 48 any less hard. So I think I'm officially an elder goth. I don't know. I've been denying it for many years, but I think it's finally true. So anyway, if you've had a couple of weeks like me, well, I think we need a vacay. And I don't have any clean hotel rooms for you to go to, but I do have a vacation for the mind, and that is horroraddicts.net. So let's talk about our theme this week, African horror. Now, there's a great article that I will link in the show notes. I'm not going to share it all because it's not mine to share, but it's by Nuzo Ono, I believe is how you say his name. And it was from theloungebooks.com. He had a list of things that are about African horror. So I'm just going to share a few of them with you. One is African horror is usually steeped in the moral values of individual tribes, with most stories reinforcing these values and dire consequences of ignoring or abandoning them. Another one is Africans respect, fear, revere, or abhor their medicine men. Some cultures refer to them as juju men, root healers, voodoo men, or witch doctors. Whatever name they go by, they all boil down to one thing: powerful men. And sometimes they can be bad men. No African horror story is ever complete without reference to these powerful and controversial medicine men. And the last one I want to share with you, and I encourage you to actually go to this site and read all of his points because they all are great points to make. But the last one is African horror stories are not folk tales, contrary to popular conception. These days, modern African horror is written in prose and style similar to mainstream horror, which readers from all over the globe can relate to. His last book, he says, The Sleepless, enjoyed wide readership from fans worldwide, proving that true horror does indeed cross all boundaries. So check out Nuzo Onho, I believe I'm probably massacring that name, his list because it has a lot of great information to share. Now, we have a problem, addicts. I kept looking up African and South African horror, and most of the lists were all American, like African American, which is great, and we'll share that in a later show, but we're talking about African horror. And so I really wanted to dig down and get some African made and acted and produced movies. These are the only African stories I could find on film. And so I really need your guys' help if you know of one to send it in to us so we can make a real list. A lot of the ones that were listed as African horror were actually only filmed there. And when I looked at the cast, they were predominantly white faces. And so that's not really what we're looking for when we're talking about African or South African horror. Are there white people in Africa? Yes, I'm sure. But what I'm looking for is some really authentic African, South African voices. What we see in His House, which is what K-Bats will be reviewing this week. Now, I do have a list. Forgive me, I know it's not perfect, but that's why we need your help to fill in this list. The first one is Tokalashe. I think that's how you pronounce it. The Tokalashe. A destitute woman lands a job as a cleaner at a rundown hospital in the heart of Johannesburg. While there, she discovers an abandoned young girl who believes she is being tormented by a supernatural force. Kieran also talks about Tokalashe this week, so we'll get some more information on that. Hex, which can be spelled Hex or Heks, and this is going to be reviewed later in the season by Chris O'Connor on number 198. A grieving woman discovers that her mother's murder has ties to a South African witch doctor's curse. What were we just talking about? What did he tell us? The Unforgiving. On the outskirts of Johannesburg, a spate of killings plagues a desolate highway. With nowhere to turn and no leads, authorities focus all their attention when two survivors turn up alive. Last One's Out. A skeptical American is stranded in the middle of a zombie-infected Africa and must rely on the help of three mysterious strangers to make it out alive. The Bone Snatcher, a scientist, finds a monster that devours its prey in the deserts of South Africa. Dracula 3000, which is basically vampires in space. And I'm not sure it's really African-based or if it was just filmed there. Eternity is a South African horror film which tells the story of a clash between vampires over the use of a serum that would allow them to walk in the daylight. Fried Berry is a 2020 South African horror. Aliens take over the body of a drug addict and take it for a joyride through Cape Town. Hellgate. This is an American South African horror. It follows two young couples who become embroiled in the mystery of a desolate ghost town, Hellgate, where a young woman was kidnapped and murdered by a biker gang in 1959. Soul Collector 8. Fighting himself bankrupt, William Zeal is forced to return to the farm he inherited from his father to start a new life with his fragmented family. Now, this is a list of movies that when I looked them up, it looked like they were mostly American, but I guess they were filmed in South Africa. House on Willow Street, Lost Boys to Thirst, The Mangler, and Surviving Evil. The last one I have to give you is a Nigerian film called Missing Angel. The plot deals with Dolly, a troubled young woman who makes a vow to God that she should die on her 25th birthday if her misery continued. The Dark Angel is sent to manipulate her, but slowly falls in love with her. Oh, gothic romance. We've been talking a lot about that recently because of our book. But anyway, now K-Bats is going to talk about one I actually feel fits this category and is also accessible to American people through Netflix. It's called His House. I watched it too, and ooh, creepy.
Congratulations. You're being released as asylum seekers, not as citizens, not yet. You will be sent to a home of our choosing. You must not move from this address.
We are good people.
Whether or not you're good people, it's not me that needs convincing.
It's a palace.
This entire house is just for us.
It's going to be nice. You're going to be happy. As long as you can get along, fit in, be one of the good ones.
This is our home.
All I can taste is the metal.
We'll get used to
I
it.
saw something in the dark. You have felt it.
You're having problems with the property?
This is what they want. They like to see us crazy. Let them send us back.
How quickly you forget everything we went through to get here. We are not going back. There is no witch.
Get down! What is that?
Rats.
Rats did this.
You went outside. This is my house! This is my house! This is my house! My house!
You don't wonder what it tells me. It says I should be afraid of you.
Horror follows a Sudanese couple relocating to England in the 2020 Netflix release His House, as perilous refugee boats begat gratitude for their fresh start in a shabby tenement. Unfortunately, eerie echoes and shadows that move by themselves suggest there is more afoot than faulty electricity, peeling wallpaper, and holes in the plaster. Well-done lighting schemes and dim sunlight through small windows create a moody palette for the background apparitions, ominous hands, kitchen oddities, and eyes watching from within the walls. Our husband and wife both have encounters they don't admit, and tearful conversations with dark door frames in the background put the viewer on edge with our characters. We think we see or hear something thanks to flashlights, masks, and disorienting figures in the night. Cultures clash amid the horrors as our refugees struggle against cruel neighbors and deep-seated racism. Although the Dinka dialogue isn't always translated, it's superb that this is told from the appropriate angle. This isn't a yuppie white couple choosing to ignore the spooky house warnings just to get out of the city and play unreliable scares with the audience. Eerie visuals and surreal waters combine the personal horrors and real-world frazzled, escalating from wet footprints and monsters in the floor to upsetting revelations that can only be put right with blood. This is a tender story about living with your demons, an excellent example of why horror from other perspectives needs to be told. For more foreign frightening flicks and cultural horrors, read my latest viewing list at horroraddicts.net.
Thank you, K-Bats. Now, Crystal Connor has 2 reviews for us this week. One religious horror out of Italy, and a second one that just came out, Held.
Hello, horror peeps. I am super excited about tonight's movie. It's called The Binding. It's a religious horror. It's a Netflix original, and it comes all the way from Italy. Okay, guys, let's get into this. I'm hella excited.
This house is magnificent.
At last, my son managed to bring you here. He's got to have something important to say. Right, Sophia? The bond with the mother is unbreakable.
Dudes, okay, I was wrong. This is not religious horror, it's a cult horror. What happened in this movie is Francisco brings his new girlfriend Emma and their daughter home to meet the mom. And as soon as the girl gets there, weird things start to happen. So the mom is doing a protection ritual around the child. Emma being from the city, and she's a civil engineer, so she's science, math, things that she can hold on to and see and focus on that she believes in, right? So when Teresa, who is Francisco's mom, starts to do the country magic, of course she doesn't believe her. She's ready to go. It seems like everyone in the village, even the doctor, is really referring back to the old way of things, cultural magic and old wives' tales, and Emma has had enough. This movie is really good. I haven't seen anything like this before. It is not, like I said, it's not religious horror. It's occult horror. It was so good, you guys. This movie stressed me out. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 5. It's on Netflix. You can watch it with the subtitles or English subbed. So yeah, check it out. I hope you guys like it. Thanks for hanging out with me and her, you guys. Until our next review. Ciao. All her peeps, you guys, we are getting so much screener love right now. I am in heaven. So the movie I'm going to be watching for you guys tonight, Chelsea from Magnolia Pictures sent us over a movie called Held. I'm super excited, super happy when they think of us and let us preview these screeners. So, okay, you guys, let's get into this.
What brings you out this way?
Just a weekend trip.
By yourself?
My husband's coming tomorrow.
This weekend's important to me.
Henry, I wasn't wearing this when I went to bed.
Where's your phone?
It was here.
I have it to hold for now and always. Happy anniversary, Mr. and Mrs. Barrett.
You will not leave the house again. Mr. Barrett, Mrs. Barrett, you must obey. We know everything you did.
Make no mistake, marriage is hard work. What if I told you there was a way to get that spark back?
There is a way.
Oh my dudes. Okay, this was just off the fucking chain. This story revolves around the Barretts, Emma, and I can't remember the husband's name because now I don't like him. Anyway, they are celebrating their anniversary and they have rented an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere. The home that they're renting is an amazing home in the middle of nowhere, and it's a smart home. So it is electronically controlled with everything. Like you can't do anything without like punching in a code or passing through some type of system that's being monitored. They're drinking, they're celebrating their anniversary, and when it's time for bed, Emma's a little bit drowsy, more than what she should have been, because they weren't drinking that much. They had 2 glasses of wine. Her vision is blurry. She's getting dizzy. He puts her to bed. Then he gets dizzy, and they're teasing each other, saying that they're lightweights. But when she wakes up in the morning, the clothes she has on are not the clothes she went to bed with. And on the bedside table are 2 cups of coffee and some roses, and her phone is missing. And so she's waking up her husband in quite an alarmed state, and it takes him a minute before he realizes that, his wife is telling the truth, that someone was in that home with them. This was an amazing movie. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait for you guys to see this as well. This movie that I just reviewed for you, courtesy of Magnolia Pictures and for Horror Addicts, is called Held, and it's getting 5 stars. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and Horror Addicts. I can't wait till our next review. Until then, you guys, I'll see you later. Ciao.
Thank you, Crystal. Daphne's Den of Darkness this week talks about 6 novels that inspired great horror movies. She says, is the book really better than the movie? With horror, that can be hard to say. The mediums are just so different. A good concept is a good concept, though. Some ideas are worth making twice. Check out her list for some stories that made the jump from print to screen successfully. The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker, Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, The Forbidden by Clive Barker, I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan. I did not know that was a book. News to me. Psycho by Robert Bloch. Jaws by Peter Benchley. What movie adaptations of books are your favorite? Is the book better? Please leave a comment on Daphne's post on the blog. And thank you, Daphne. Now it's about time for Dead Mail. We got a write-in from Billy. He says, your garbage-smelling apartment sounds horrible. I've lived in some bad places, too. Like an apartment right by the subway, so the whole house shook when the train went by. And a farmhouse where the chickens kept coming in the window and pooping everywhere. I want to hear more living horror stories. And this is from Billy. Well, Billy, when I was in high school, I lived in an apartment where there was a crack under the door. And for some reason, we just didn't know to seal it or whatever. But they had these giant cockroaches there. I mean, they were like those big, huge beetle kind, the scarab-looking ones. And they would walk under the door and like come in our house. It was pretty bad. I lived in a bad apartment at that time. And one time I woke to this like crunchy like, and I was like, oh crap, there's a mouse in my room, you know? I didn't know what it was. I thought there was a mouse. So I called my mom and we both like with a flashlight very scarily look behind the bed, and it's this cockroach crunching on a little fish cracker that my friend had dropped when she came over that day. And it's just like, I'm like, how can he make that loud of noise? He's just a little bug. So that was gross. We also lived in a black mold apartment where like the mold was like creeping up the wall. Yeah, we moved out of there pretty quick. One of my other places I lived had black mold in this one little sunroom thing. And I didn't actually know that. And I didn't know a lot about black mold. If I had, I would have been a little bit more careful. But basically, I was in there cleaning one day and I started not being able to breathe very well. And so I, got out of there and I had black mold poisoning in my throat. I went to the doctor, but they didn't really know what to do. So they referred me to a ear, nose, throat doctor. But I had to wait months for it. So during that time, I'm like, I can't have this crap in my throat. I got to do something about it. So I looked online and there were herbal remedies. And one was brown seaweed extract, which you could only find in this particular pill that was like made for dieting. It didn't help me diet, I'll tell you that. But anyway, I started taking the brown seaweed extract and my throat started feeling better. And like, I could feel like strips of stuff like peeling off and like swallowing it, and it was really gross. But after that, I felt so much better. So by the time I got to the ear, nose, throat guy, he looked down there and he's like, I don't see nothing, but your skin all there is like completely like fresh baby skin. So gross, weird, and it's kind of strange when the medical profession doesn't know what to do about black mold, and maybe it was just that stupid doctor. But there you go. Those are my worst living situations. So Billy has asked for some horror stories about living situations. So please write in to me. One that just popped into my head was a story written by A.D. Vick about spiders and having them infested in the house everywhere. Now, he took something that happened in his life and just embellished it for that story. But those are the kind of stories that we want. So write into us at horroraddicts@gmail.com. Thank you, Billy. Now we got some dead mail from Martin.
'Cause I eat boys, yeah, I get them gory. You can't control me 'cause I wrote this story. Yeah, I eat poison, I get them bloody. You'll never notice I stayed home to study.
That was a song he sent us called I Eat Boys from her new album Blood Bunny by Choli Moriando. Now, I just played a clip of it because she didn't write it in. One of you guys did. But you could stream her new album, or you could just check it out on YouTube with the link in the show notes. Thank you, Martin, for sharing that. It was pretty delightful to watch. Kind of funny and cheeky. Now, Sherry asks, Ems, did you know they have a new Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expansion pack? No, Sherry, I didn't know. And I actually didn't even know there was a Vampire Masquerade Rivals game in the first place. It has been added to my Amazon wish list. It is $45, so it'll have to be some kind of gift or something. Can't just plop that out on a daily basis, but I am so excited. You know, I collected the Vampire the Masquerade. They used to be called Jihad. It used to be called a Jihad game, but of course, you know, the name was changed for obvious reasons. But I used to collect those, and I actually still have all my cards from Vampire the Masquerade. And what I loved about them the most was when I was a storyteller for Vampire the Masquerade game, I could pull out those cards and be like, this is the guy you encounter. And it was wonderful art, and it was a great way to like add some depth to the games that we were playing. Anyway, she sent a link to the information about the expansion pack, and it says, if you love playing card games, then we have some exciting news to share with you all. Renegade Game Studios, which is a tabletop gaming company, has made an announcement about their popular card game, Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. The company will be offering a new extension card collection. The new set of cards will be called Blood and Alchemy. It will introduce 2 all-new vampire bloodlines, which include the Tremere. Well, I'm a Tremere, and that should have been in the first pack. And the Thin Bloods. Don't even get me started on how they leave Tremere out of everything. Like Kindred the Embrace, I would have liked to see a Tremere character. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sherry. As soon as I got this email, I went straight to Amazon and put it on my wish list. So I'm very excited to get that. And it looks absolutely beautiful. Do you own it? I would like to see some gameplay if you have a moment. Thank you, Sherry. And for all of you who have not written in, or if you'd like to write in again, please write in to us at horroraddicts@gmail.com. Send in your questions, comments, musings, information about horror, or our horror lifestyle. Now we have our new writer, Mark Orr, the historian of horror, stop by to chat with us.
Greetings, denizens of the dark. Mark Orr here, with a heads off, of course, heads up, about some of the topics I'll be covering in Historian of Horror in the coming weeks and months. We'll be looking at the tragically brief career of Matt Baker, the first significant African-American comic book artist, and his contributions to the horror genre in that medium in the 1940s and 1950s. And I've been doing some thinking about Hollywood movies. Maybe you've seen a few. If you have, you're probably most familiar with the mainstream of Universal monster movies from the 30s and 40s, Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, maybe the Mummy. But what about The Creeper, Inner Sanctum, Captive Wild Woman, The Mad Ghoul, all the secondary, tertiary, quadrary pictures that don't get a lot of play, don't get a lot of attention. It's about time maybe they did. And then there are all the other studios out in Hollywood. MGM, Fox, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Columbia, RKO. They all made horror pictures. Maybe we should talk about them. And then there are the Poverty Row studios, Republic, Monogram, Mascot, PRC, and the Independents, including Disney. Did you ever think about them as an independent studio who dipped a talon toe into the scary into the pool every now and then? Well, they did. There's also Fleischer and Max Sennett, United Artists. And maybe we'll even cross the big pond and take a look at what Alex Corda was doing over in England, along with British Gaumont and Ealing. We're all familiar with Hammer Studios, but horror was going on before Curse of Frankenstein. I'll also want to look at some more radio, some television, and maybe some popular music. I know I've covered opera a little more than some folks might want. I don't know. But there's lots of popular music that relates to the scary things coming over your airwaves. We'll take a look at that. Dr. Demento was full of that good stuff. Think on this phrase: the cockroach that ate Cincinnati. And be ready. And as always, be afraid. Be very afraid.
Thank you, Mark. Lionel has been searching the woods for some special Bigfoot files for us, and he brings us the finale and third episode of Hulu's true crime documentary Sasquatch, which really isn't about Sasquatch at all, and it left him wanting. Says, unfortunately for Bigfoot enthusiasts, the monsters are not Sasquatches. They are cannabis farmers in Northern Californian region known as the Emerald Triangle. The episode 3 continues the murder investigation when one of the more colorful characters named Ghost Dance says he recalls a cannabis farmer nicknamed Bigfoot. Lionel began to see where the trail is leading. And when a law enforcement official confirms it, saying, that sounds like Bigfoot Gary, Lionel was like, you gotta be kidding me. Did the story satisfy him? No, but it gave the documentarian some closure. David Holthouse, he said, there is this elusive truth that I glimpsed through the trees, and it's like the same obsession that drives Sasquatchers to spend half their lives in the woods. At least I have a story that I can tell myself makes sense now. Well, for Sasquatch enthusiasts, though, the story continues. Sorry about that, Lionel, but thank you. And we look forward to your next column and what else you've found about Bigfoot. Now on to our audio drama.
The Deadbringer by E.M. Markoff. All is not well in the land of Moenda. In the south, the Ascendancy has positioned itself as a dominant power by exploiting the people's fear of the unknown, twisting that fear into a campaign of genocide against the Deadbringers, a race capable of summoning souls and reanimating the dead. But in the great northern city of Opulense, Kira Vidal, a young Deadbringer, has escaped the fate of the rest of his kind, living in hiding with his uncle Utao, plying their trade as morticians. Welcome to the world of the Eldoret. Episode 4, Corpse Road. The Bastion has approved Mr. Stone's request to have Kira summon his mother's soul back from the beyond. The following night, Kira, Utao, Mr. Stone, and 2 Bastion agents journey south of Opulense for several miles down Corpse Road. Their goal? The long-abandoned cemetery, Corpse Hill. A full moon hung overhead, illuminating the small group marching up the road in single file. Udao led the way, hauling a wooden cart laden with a tall mirror made of polished sardonyx, loosely covered with a thick tarp. Next came Kira, who helped steady it as they made their way up the pitted, stone-strewn path. Trailing close behind was Agent Tim and Mr. Stone, his scared eyes seeming even larger in the light of the oil lantern he held out before him. In the rear was Colonel Sal, one of Utao's main contacts at the Bastion.
No matter how troublesome the path may become, Mr. Stone, do not stray from it. Your feet may thank you, but your soul will not.
I don't doubt your words, Mr. Vidal. It was quite a hassle to convince the parlor within the city to bury my mother at Corpse Hill. They too were wary of the path and begged that no one stray from it. But when I asked them why, they could not provide an explanation other than that the fields are cursed.
How did you convince them to bury your mother at Corpse Hill?
Money.
Maybe we should have brought some money to toss on the road. Huh, Kira?
No way, Tim. No, the Golden Moenda would have convinced me to accept such a request.
And that's why I call them fools. If you aren't comfortable here, then the gods help anyone else. Don't you agree, Colonel Sal?
I agree. There's something vile about this place.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who is frightened by the superstitions surrounding this area. Although I must admit, I had expected more courage from agents.
A courageous person does not ignore superstition, but acknowledges it and examines it. You would do well to heed our judgment, for this area is indeed dangerous.
How so?
This road, Corpse Road, Coffin Way, Procession Way, whatever name you choose to call it, was used solely for the purpose of transporting the dead. It became bad luck to use it for any other purpose than death. Depending on whether a path is good or bad, it can steal away the souls of the dead and trap them. These sharp rocks and holes are meant to trip the casket bearers and cause the corpse to fall onto the ground. When that happens, the soul of the departed is ripped away from the body and swallowed up by the path. Or at least, that is how I understand it. For whatever reason, this path is bad, and it has swallowed many souls. As for the why, I have no explanation.
But why are we, who still have blood pumping through our veins, in peril?
I have heard it said that the lurking evil tainted this part of the land during the First War. In such a place, the living can become shadows that wander aimlessly until death takes mercy upon them. Others say that Deadbringers poisoned the land as a way to exact revenge.
But if this area is tainted, then why is the path passable while the land beyond is not?
Corpse Road was laid long ago by the Roerden. I suppose they wove some sort of enchantment into the stones as they were laid. But this path is like any other path in the sense that, if it is not maintained, it will degrade with time.
You are a wealth of knowledge, aren't you? I see now why the Bastion holds you in such high esteem. After all, the Deadbringer is not you, but the boy. But the both of you work together very closely, don't you?
Mr. Vidal's knowledge is our safe passage, and the boy's abilities your sister's freedom. And yes, they are under our protection. I suggest you commit that fact to heart.
Kira, why have you stopped helping me push the cart?
What's going on?
Your face.
Kira, you know you're not supposed to call upon death without first informing me. Explain.
I didn't call upon death willingly. Corpse Road is evil. There are too many bitter souls trapped here, and something has excited them. They're whispering that they long for blood.
Nightmare lords be damned.
Is this because you're a Deadbringer?
No, I don't know. I feel like it's more than that, but I can't pinpoint what it is.
Do you feel that you can continue forward?
I think so, yes, but not at this pace. I don't want to linger on this path longer than necessary.
Itao, do you believe it's safe for the rest of us to continue onward?
Yes. Just do not err from the path, no matter what. If Corpse Hill is just as vile, then it will probably be best to turn back. But I have never visited the cemetery, and cannot say if it is, or if it is not.
Understood. Here is what's going to happen. Kira will go on ahead and make sure that the cemetery is safe for the rest of us. If so, then the summoning will continue as planned. As you heard, there is evil lurking about this path. Stay alert, keep close, and tread carefully. My respects to your late mother, Stone, but she had poor judgment in her choice of resting place.
My apologies, Colonel.
Kira, go. Once you feel better, you have my permission to make any preparations necessary to carry out the summoning. That includes calling on death.
Be careful, Kira.
I will, Uncle. You be careful too. I'll be waiting for everyone at Corpse Hill.
The Deadbringer was written by E.M. Markoff. Find out more at eldoret.com. Voices in this audio drama by James Saw as Kira Vidal, Rish Outfield as Utao Vidal, Cadera Wade as Ilia the Herbalist, Ramon Cantarero as Kim Lafont, Emery and Rich as Colonel Sal Sam, Philip Jin as Mr. Stone, E.M. Markoff as the narrator and the stranger, Gabriel Markoff as grieved partner, Dave M. Strom as the shopkeeper, DJ Pizzolatis as Tim, agent of the Bastion. The theme song is Huitzilin by Sara Monroy Solis. Find her on Instagram at Sari Solis.
Thank you, E.M. Markoff, for this great audio drama. The Deadbringer has been adapted from a novel of the same name, and you can find it by going to Amazon or Eldoret.com. Kieran's Odds and Dead Ends this week talks about that African entity, Tokalashe. Kieran says, it seems that even with just a quick look at IMDb, the South African monster of the Tokalashe hits a nerve. There are 6 films with the monster in its name released in the past 10 years and a 1965 film to boot. Many might know of the creature from the 2018 film, The Tokalashe, which has already been reviewed on horroraddicts.net. However, Kieran has investigated this more for us. He says the Tokalashe is a small imp-like creature from Bantu legend, usually dwelling in watery locations such as ponds or lakes. Its size may be similar to that of a brownie if you're familiar with the creature from Scottish legend. It's gray and scrawny, ugly, and has long fingers. And because of this, one might put bricks under the feet of a bed to hoist the bed out of reach. And he talks all about this creature on his blog post at horroraddicts.net. Thank you, Kieran. And now we have our good friend DJ bringing us Nightmare Fuel.
Hello, addicts. Most people who choose to live in small towns do so for the quiet, peacefulness, and relative safety they offer. Not just for the individual, but their family as well. White Bluff, Tennessee is one such place. There is, however, a dark legend involving the woods and what may reside there, the White Bluff Screamer. White Bluff, Tennessee is an idyllic town offering community, southern hospitality, and beautiful scenery. Those reasons drew a family of 9 to build a home and start a new life there in the 1920s. It wasn't long before wails, cries, and screeches coming from the forest disrupted the night. As you might expect, it frightened the family, and, after several days of the blood-curdling sounds, the father grabbed his gun and went hunting for the source. According to the story, as the man searched his property, he noticed that the volume and quality of the sound improved the further he got from his home. He soon realized that his quarry wasn't a single creature, but multiple ones. He hurried back home, not wanting to face whatever made those noises alone. That's where he discovered the dismembered remains of his family strewn about the house. Some versions of the tale also claim that the husband witnessed a female leaving the scene engulfed by a white mist. Another tale comes from a deer hunter who had strung up a buck he had killed earlier in the day and placed the guts in a washtub. He sat on his porch, strumming away on his guitar, and noticed that the woods had grown suddenly quiet. There was no croaking from the frogs or the buzz of insects. Suddenly, his hunting dogs came running around the corner of his house, where their pen was. They crawled into an opening under the house with their tails firmly tucked beneath them. He placed his guitar down and looked in the direction of the dog's pen. There stood a creature as tall as a basketball goal with long, stringy white hair and hooves for feet. It let out a piercing scream and headed first for his dogs and then for him. The hunter barely closed the front door before the creature began clawing at it. Unable to access his prey, the beast let out more screams and paced the porch, waiting for him to come back outside. The standoff lasted until after the sun rose, when the creature finally left with the deer carcass and washtub. The roof of the pen hung askew opposite of the hole the dogs used to escape, and his guitar lay on the porch, covered in a slimy substance. Later, the washtub was found in the woods, licked completely clean. Other stories regarding the identity of the White Bluff Screamer range from a banshee, a werewolf, to an exotic animal that escaped a circus train. There are still reports of screams and wails coming from the forest around the town of White Bluff, with some claiming to have seen the beast. So the next time you are outside and hear a scream or wail, it might be a good time to call it a night and head inside. You never know what may be looking at you with hungry eyes from the woods. Until next time, addicts.
Thank you, DJ. Great to have you back. If you'd like to email us about horror, your opinion on a topic we've discussed, or something you would like to hear us cover on the show, email us at horroraddicts@gmail.com. We're always looking for new blood. So if you'd like to be on staff, don't be afraid to contact us. Up next, still watching American Horror Stories? Well, we've got news. A new horror publisher looking for stories, and What We Do in the Shadows is coming back. Whoop! All of this and more in HorrorAddicts.net news.
HorrorAddicts.net news.
Harkening back to the glory days of gothic romance that had us up reading all night, HorrorAddicts.net Press presents Haunts and Hellions, edited by Emery and Rich. 13 stories of horror, romance, and that perfect moment when the two worlds collide. Vengeful spirits attacking the living, undead lovers revealing their true nature, and supernatural monsters seeking love await you. Pull the blinds closed, light your candle, and cuddle up in your reading nook for some chilling and romantic tales. With stories by Emily Blue, Kevin Ground, Rowan Hill, Naching Tikasa, Lucy Blue, Emmy Z. Madrigal, R.L. Merrill, N.C. Northcott, Emery and Rich, Daniel R. Robichaud, Daphne Strassert, Tara Van Flower, and B.F. Vega. Available now at Amazon or HorrorAddicts.net. Order Haunts and Hellions, a gothic romance anthology from HorrorAddicts.net Press. We've had tons of chilling chats and inspiration stories at the HorrorAddicts.net blog that give you insights into the book. Just go to HorrorAddicts.net and you will find them there. Also, while you're there, check out Jesse Orr's fiction column, Gypsy Mob. Gravestone Press is looking for stories. It's a new press, and for more information and the calls, you can check out our site where the submission links are. But here are the topics: When They Came for You, Eyes, Halloween Haunts, and Blood Clots. For those of you still watching American Horror Story, FX confirmed the premiere date for Season 10. The upcoming season double feature will premiere Wednesday, August 25th on FX. The network teased on Twitter, more horror than you can handle. E-Online reports FX has more than made up for the delay, as prior to Season 10's debut, a spin-off series will be available to stream on FX on Hulu. The network shared on Twitter, these are not your typical bedtime stories. American Horror Stories premieres July 15th exclusively on FX on Hulu. Comicbook.com reports What We Do in the Shadows Season 3 will premiere on FX on September 2nd, according to a new press release from the network. Fans will be happy to know that What We Do in the Shadows will debut the first 2 episodes of Season 3 as one premiere event. The show will occupy its same slot Thursday on FX. Episodes will then be offered to stream next day through FX on Hulu. After the shocking Season 2 finale, we will find the housemates in a panic about what to do with Guillermo, after discovering that he is a vampire killer. This season, the vampires are elevated to a new level of power and will encounter the vampire from which all vampires have descended. Akasha? I know, it's not her. A Tempting Siren, Gargoyles, Werewolf Kickball, Atlantic City Casinos, Wellness Cults, Ex-Girlfriends, Gyms, and Supernatural Curiosities galore. Plus, Colin Robinson is turning 100, and Nandor, faced with his own eternal life crisis, tries to inject his life with more meaning. Will he find love, or is he destined to be an immortal bachelor with 37 wives? Find out on Season 3. And that's all for HorrorAddicts.net news.
HorrorAddicts.net news.
Our featured book this week was reviewed by Daphne Strassert, and it is A Knowing I Sink by Timothy Huguenin. Timothy G. Huguenin was a contestant in the Next Great Horror Writer contest here at HorrorAddicts.net, and Daphne had this to say about the book. She says Julian takes a summer job cleaning the house of Mr. V, a notorious recluse in his small West Virginian town. He soon discovers that the sickly old man is far weirder than the rumors say. Julian tells himself that the money's worth it so he can get a car and impress the girl he likes. But when his crush asks Julian to sneak her in to see the mysterious Mr. V, Julian puts much more than just his job at risk. Because Unknowing I Sink is a novella, there's no room for excess in the plot. Daphne says the story is tight, keeping the action fast. There's no unnecessary fluff. Still, Huguenin manages to build dread organically, keeping the horror in the back of your mind for most of the book. He does an excellent job of making the reader create their own worry. Something is going to happen. Something is right around the corner. The payoff is worth the wait. Daphne considers Unknowing I Sink one of the most literary horror books that she's picked up in the past year. Huguenin takes a subtle hand in guiding the reader through the story, letting tension build organically, before punching them in the gut with the reveal. She hopes Unknowing I Sink is in consideration for a Stoker Award next year. It would be well deserved. If you're looking for creeping horror with a satisfying twist and excellent writing, pick up Unknowing I Sink. Thank you, Daphne, and great job, Timothy. Glad to hear that you're doing so well. Now, Nachin got to speak to another author, our featured author this week. Eugen Bacon is an African-Australian computer scientist who has mentally re-engineered into creative writing. Her work has been shortlisted, longlisted, or commended in national and international awards. Her novella, Ivory's Story, was shortlisted in the 2020 British Science Fiction Association Awards. Naching's full interview with her, go to horroraddicts.net. And now a taste of the author's work, read by the author.
Unlimited Data is a story about a woman from the village in old Kampala. It's a futuristic cyberpunk story. Must have a smartphone, the job ad said. Kaikara was good with gas fitting, roofing, drainage, even power outlets, ladders, testing and repairing. Most electrical things he could do. And gardening. His hands were clever with greenscapes. He could water and feed lilies or stinkwood,